Hello and welcome to the second episode of Weekend Sauce. I'm your host Dom,
And I'm Corey.
and today we're going to be talking about two things. First, Apex Legends,
Yep.
the new craze battle royale, and
hmm
after we're going to be trying to cover the Nintendo Direct actually that was recently
Yeah, just a
went over.
few little thoughts and comments on this week's direct that came out. But yeah, Apex Legends.
Yeah, so starting with Apex Legends, out of nowhere, blindside. Honestly, had no idea about this game until Corey right here, handsome devil right here. He told me about the game, and he was actually pretty interested in it, which I'm surprised. You're not a big battle royale guy.
I am not. So it was really funny, right? Because there were like rumors and such kind of surrounding this Titanfall Battle Royale game, which, as you say, it sounds very strange because Titanfall is a game about mechs and everything. And they was saying, it was going to get revealed after the Super Bowl. All this, this sort of stuff going on around about it. And so now we have, as of last Monday, Apex Legends, right? So Respawn's new hot ticket battle royale game that they just dropped without any prior notice. And yeah, it is a Titanfall battle royale. It exists within the Titanfall universe. Couldn't be any different though, of course,
No,
right?
yeah, no doubt.
So it still has that kind of similar gunplay, kind of like
Has
a
that soft, muted,
muted version of
Titanfall
it, right? Like there's no wall
feel to
running.
it.
There's the speed is very kind of standard as opposed to the crazy speed of Titanfall's 1 and 2's pilots. I think it does a really, really good job though. Like
The
you said.
gunplay is fantastic.
Yeah.
I enjoy how unique all the guns are, right? It's not
Mhm.
to say that other battle royales don't have unique guns,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like if we compare PUBG, yes, it's unique to that because it's based off of the Arma 3 mod,
Yeah,
right?
'cause,
It's very militaristic.
Yeah, PUBG is your straightforward, standard, almost realistic battle royale game, right? There's no kind of crazy or wacky aspects to it, and Fortnite's kind of on the other end of that spectrum where it's almost all
Yeah, they
kind
have
of crazy and wacky,
things,
right? So
gun turrets and
yeah,
chain
traps
guns and
and
hoverboards
yeah,
and ATVs and
yeah,
all these things, all these things.
yeah. So it's really just kind of the draws of each game. They have their benefits and negatives, obviously, and then for Apex, it comes out and it's almost kind of in the middle, a bit leaning towards the PUBG
No
side of
solo
things.
duos though. Only tri
Yeah,
23s.
it's a bit weird, right? Because it comes out and it's realistic to a certain extent, and also has this sci-fi and everything. Then, like you said, it's all squad based, right? So it really does exist kind of apart from Fortnite and PUBG. Not too much, but enough that like it kind of draws your attention, right? Like you want to check, like you said, I'm not a huge fan of these battle royale games, but it dropped. I'm like, oh, I kind of want to check it out because it's it's this hot ticket new item that came out of nowhere that seemingly beat out Fortnite in almost all aspects, at least at the start. And yeah, so
So yeah, it brings out with characters now, right? So we have specific traits and characters,
Mhm.
and not only do they all have their own backstories and they all act differently and they'll act differently, which I didn't think I would enjoy in a battle royale, right? Especially in a game like it's not to say I don't enjoy character and story, but it's just like I didn't expect
you don't expect it, yeah.
to
yeah.
like it as much as I do,
Yeah.
right? So many times with Mirage, I bought him recently,
Yeah.
and I just find myself kind of like chuckling at how much he doesn't take himself seriously, right? Or how much you can't take his character seriously because every single time he just opens his mouth, it's just like, really, man? Like, do you not know where you are right now?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the thing, right? It's like they added this almost personable quality to you playing the game, playing the battle royale, right? Because, like you said, you have characters, whereas before, Fortnite and PUBG is just a silent kind of avatar that you take control of for however long you're in the game, and that's basically it. And in Apex, you take control of a character, and they say things, and they react to what's going on around them, and they have personalities and backstory and lore and everything,
What would
right?
be your favorite character, actually?
So to play, my favorite character is Pathfinder. Kind of conceptually and in general, it's Bloodhound.
Bloodhound?
Yeah, I really like Bloodhound because they're all, the whole, nobody knows anything about Bloodhound. They're this mysterious, hopefully a person that, hunts for a living and reveres these strange, gods and all, the Allfather. Like everything that they say involves like almost like Norse mythology, right? Like the Allfather, and they're always surrounded by ravens and crows and
Norse
stuff.
mythology, godlike.
Well,
love
yeah,
that.
it's like that's not something that's ever been done in the Titanfall universe, right?
True,
Like, wow.
Religion's never really. It's
Yeah,
not a
that's what I
thing.
mean. It's so kind of far out of left field and so beyond what is kind of currently understood for this setting, that that's why I really like it.
Mhm.
And I mean, just because their armor looks really cool too, so that definitely helps a lot. Yeah, it's just really interesting though, kind of on that point of them having this kind of new take on the setting, right? Because um, Apex Legends is connected to Titanfall kind of very sparsely, right? So Titanfall 1 and 2 is very much about pilots and titans, and the war between
Yeah, the dynamic between
kind of
both
how
factions.
kind of how each of the factions kind of interact within their war, right? So we have the militia, the frontier militia rather, who they have their titans and their pilots, and that's kind of the core of their military defensive operations, because they're the ones being invaded. And then I believe it's the IMC, the aggressors in this case.
It
but
might be the IMC. I don't know.
yeah, so for them, a lot of their fighting is done through proxies and contracts, right? And for Apex Legends, that's most important because Titanfall 2, of course, has the Apex mercenaries as the main antagonists that you fight, with all the bosses and everything, right? So, even in the intro for Apex Legends, I can't remember his name out, but you have the main leader of the Apex mercenaries talking, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the main connection. It's the Apex mercenary gang, and
it's
the
part of that faction, Titanfall 2, best faction. By the
yeah,
way.
so that's that's where they went with it. So they have that kind of ground base in terms of the setting, but now they can kind of do whatever they want with it. Like our first week, we touched briefly on League of Legends and their setting, and how these open type settings where they can play fast and loose with how the characters exist and interact within the world. It's almost like Titanfall, or rather, it's almost that Apex Legends is like that now.
Yeah, you could almost have like anything whatsoever. I mean, sure. I don't know. Could you have a weird-looking alien in Apex?
I think the main thing to keep in mind for these types of settings is they have to do a reasonable enough job of justifying the existence of a character for it to work, right? So, going back to League of Legends, they can kind of put in whatever they want, because they can just say like, oh yeah, this weird race is a forgotten race from
Just comes in.
from Freljord that's
But with
just recently
Titanfall,
been.
we could just say like they have
Yeah.
a universe, aliens.
Yeah, that
thing.
like Titanfall is a sci-fi universe, but right now it's been kind of grounded in more realistic considerations, right? With at least to a certain extent, they did add the time travel aspect in Titanfall 2, so maybe you could have, maybe conceptually a character could be like a time traveler from the future or the past or whatever, right? That would make sense in the setting. They just have to make sure they justify their inclusion in the game in Apex Legends, right? In a reasonable enough way that doesn't, it's not stupid or kind
No, of course. Of course.
So that's kind of where they're at right now. They can almost do whatever they want, so long as they can make sure it's included in a reasonable enough manner. It's almost like their imagination is just the only limitation in this case, right? So
Yeah.
I think it'll be important moving forward for them to kind of keep making sure that they can do these things in ways that make sense.
As long as they don't forget about the game, just keep it updated, keep it fresh. I feel like that's what Fortnite just does such a great job at doing, right? Every season, new skins, they even change up the map pretty frequently, I feel like.
Yeah.
Adding snow, or I don't know.
They do enough
changing up
changes
the
that
zone.
it's not like you're kind of just playing the same thing over and
Take out
over and
guns,
over
add
again.
new guns, right?
Yeah. Like, I know one of the big issues with PUBG is that it can feel kind of samey, just because, I mean, yeah, you have map variations and such, but, I mean, all the weapons are basically the same, like, no matter what. So you kind of just get into a I don't want to say groove, but almost like you're just kind of going through the motions in a sense, right? When you're, at least for that game. I do know the first DLC packs,
Okay.
whatever you want to call it.
It's coming out soon?
It's March.
In March,
Yeah,
okay.
in March. I can't remember the exact date, or if they even said it was an exact date, but it's coming out in March. So, personally, I think it'll be at least one legend and maybe a few extras. Any thoughts on that? Like, what do you think?
Okay.
Or here, let me ask you this instead, rather. So, on one hand, what do you think they might have in the DLC? And on the other hand, what do you think they should have in the DLC? If those are different.
What I think they should have, at least one legend, right? All of the legends, great cast of characters, as I said before. I love the personality, so I want to see another legend if possible, right? Will I be disappointed if there's not one? Maybe it's a little bit, right? But I think for sure new weapons, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the least of what we can ask for besides a legend. Just a new weapon, right? I'm not expecting to see a new map. The game just came out,
Just
right?
came out, yeah.
The map beautiful. I love the biomes. You know, you have this jungle biome, desert biome.
Yeah, it's
Right?
almost like everything's kind of split into these little like sections, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
it's like you said, you have jungles and deserts and everything, and it's
So I hope number one for a new legend. I'm sure they can bring in something from Titanfall. I'm a big fan of the grab star,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Where it pulls in everybody that's close by. That is a
that'd be
fantastic
fantastic. Yeah.
tool. I love it.
Mhm.
So if they can bring in some new assets, sorry, not new, some old assets from Titanfall 2,
Mhm.
right? That would just be fantastic. If you can make new things though, I am all for it, you know?
Yeah, I think personally they'll probably go for new rather than old, at least to start
You think
off with.
so? You think they would?
Yeah,
I feel like it's just easier though to just bring in something old,
but
and
well,
no one would be mad though.
yeah. Here's the thing, right? At least the way I see it is that they have this new IP, so to speak. Um, not in the traditional sense, because like we mentioned, it's just connected to the Titanfall universe. But they have this game where they can kind of just go wild with it. So I feel like they're gonna do their best to make sure that they're kind of maybe not
Okay,
innovating.
okay, but hold on though. What is besides the characters? What is new in Apex Legends compared to Titanfall 2? I know if I'm being very broad, but you know what I mean in that sense. When I feel like most of the guns are reused assets, right?
Oh yeah, the guns are. I can't speak for the snipers because I never used snipers in Titanfall.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
Even some of the abilities that, like, I'm not saying like all of them are unique.
yeah, some of the
You know?
abilities are ported from Titanfall, maybe kind of nerfed in a sense, right? So like, Pathfinder's grapple hook, Wraith's phasing,
Yeah.
Mirage's holograms. They work. Mirage obviously exists as a hologram
Caustic?
focus.
Was there any traps like caustic?
There wasn't no, there wasn't. So they had ticks in
Yes,
Titanfall 2, which
ticks,
were
that's
those.
what it was.
They were the remote kind of mines that
Just
you would
threw
you would
them
just
in.
throw them around the map and they would go and seek out pilots, which
Better dogs.
yeah, more like almost they're just kind of function like dogs. And yeah, the closest comparison you can make is caustic, but not really. Like he has
No.
mines, but they're more like they're less damage focused and more utility focused, and somebody has to run into them or you have to shoot them yourself, and it's poison as opposed to just an explosion. So maybe they could have something like ticks. I don't know. It's kind of
I would hate to play
yeah,
ticks. I don't know how I feel about that.
it's kind of tough to like think of how they could bring stuff in from Titanfall, just because like Titanfall plays entirely different, right? I mean, just not even counting Titans, obviously, but just the human characters, the pilots.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right?
Everything's on a shorter cooldown.
Everything's faster, right? Like, we like to we like to kind of make fun of the Mozambique in Apex Legends, right?
It's awful.
But then Titanfall 2, it's actually not horrible, right? It's just it's a shotgun pistol. It's good for like that fast-paced gameplay, whereas for Apex it's basically useless because
Has
you
30
don't.
shots,
Yeah, as the game goes on, you don't want to be resigned to using these close-quarter weapons because you're
This
just
is
gonna
now
get
the
shot from
Mozambique,
10 or 15 feet away.
It's now the anti-Mozambique's podcast here with Dom and Clay.
Seriously, no, like that's just how it is though, right? Like porting that gun, makes it worse in this kind of slower and more methodical gameplay, right?
Makes sense though. Something has to be bad.
Yeah, so I feel like they're gonna try and do new things at first, and maybe they'll bring in kind of stuff from Titanfall, as much as they can, right? I mean,
I feel like as long as it has that flavor of like the whole world, like the universe, Titanfall universe, right? They can't do no wrong, right? I love all of their guns, right?
Mhm.
Even the way the Mozambique, even though I don't like the Mozambique, I like the concept of it, of a shotgun pistol. I like
Yeah.
the look of it.
Yeah.
The devotion, how it ramps up into more damage, more precision, right? It's just gets insane at later levels. And I like that they took it the next step with the turbocharger, actually.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is an addition onto the devotion, right?
yeah, it's I really like how they did that too, because certain guns can become really good, but only if you have those special attachments, right? So I've memed to the extent that I really like the triple take, because like my first like 10 games I kept finding one and doing really well, and I got my first win with the triple take, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, finding the triple take on the ground is like, I'm gonna take it because that's my gun. But really the triple take is only really good to have if you have its special attachment. And so for me, after playing for a little while, I always try and go for a longbow DMR instead, which is another sniper rifle, because it's more generally reliable as opposed to the Take 3, or the triple take rather. So I really think that's a good inclusion for this type of game, right? Because you have these, it's almost like a little mini choice you have to make, right? Like, do I take the devotion with the hope that I find the turbocharger, or do I take, the Spitfire or something similar, right? Something that you can kind of have instead of that. So I think it's a really good idea, right? It's
No, it's a great idea,
Yeah.
because you're kind of banking on if you can get that augmentation or not, and you're kind of playing your odds in another way, right?
Yeah. It's like I said, it's kind of like this mini choice you have to make. Do
Mhm.
you want to almost limit yourself in the hopes that you find this attachment, or do you just want to go for it, right? Because
Hopefully someone else is carrying it, right?
Mhm.
Kill him off and take
Yeah.
it down.
I mean, yeah, like one other thing I just wanted to mention just real quick here. So the sort of inclusion of these characters and the roles that they kind of exist within, right? So they're not like overtly defined, right? But like Bloodhound is a scanner type legend.
Yeah. He's like
Yeah.
a recon kind
Yeah,
of find
Bloodhound,
people.
like when you look at the icons, there's like a radar. Gibraltar and Caustic have
Have, like, a
shields because they're
defensive-
like tanky. I wanted to hear what you thought about that because, so I bought Caustic. He was the first legend I
Mhm.
bought once I had enough currency to get him, and I had never actually played against a Caustic up to that point.
Okay.
Which was interesting because it's like I played against a lot of Mirages, and it's like, well, where are all the Caustics? Like, is he just not good, or are people just not buying him, kind of in favor of Mirage?
I think he's just weird. He's just a
So
weird character.
here's what I've kind of settled on. So I was under the impression that Caustic's mines were like Teemo mines from League of Legends,
Okay.
where you would run into them and they would poison you, but they would also do damage right away.
Yes.
Right. So it was like an explosion that would hurt you instantly, and then you would kind of take a little bit of damage after that. In reality, the ways traps work is they just kind of exude gas once they're triggered, whether you shoot them or they.
Completely blind you and slow
Yeah.
you.
And I think they only do like 3 damage per second, which is peanuts, right? It's nothing. It's almost negligible. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that because if we're to take these kind of distinctions from the characters to heart, then Caustic is almost supposed to be like a tankier
I
style
feel, okay.
of legend.
I don't think it's like tanky. When I see the shield, I don't want to think tanky.
Okay,
I think,
let's
I think
forget tanky.
what they were going for is more like defensive.
Yeah.
Right. So he's great for like setting up. I feel right, and I understand why he does such little damage because they don't want the legend to be the
Overpowered or
defining
anything?
trait of how you play.
That's true.
Like it should influence how you play the game, but it shouldn't
you
be
shouldn't excel
the
over
main
other
thing.
legends. Yeah.
The main thing should be the gunplay,
Mhm,
is how you take out people.
Yeah, you wouldn't want it to be so like everyone's picking like the same few legends because like they're just the best no matter what. Yeah, I think that's a good way to
So
kind of
that's
think
why
of it. Yeah.
I get why it doesn't do that much damage, but I feel like I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Caustic because sometimes I feel he's really good because
Mhm.
he puts down the poison, right? And if I'm not playing a Bloodhound, right, I'm not able to just see straight through it. I'm
Mhm.
not able to just laser beam him down, right? If I'm playing something else, he has the drop on me, which is pretty great. But at the same time, as a Caustic, right, you have to be throwing out your traps first instead of initiating a gunfight, right? Which is timed down, which could get you killed, right? So I'm gonna have to keep my eye out on how I feel about Caustic traps. I do think that the 3 damage is very minute. I felt that
Yeah,
once
sorry, go ahead.
I'm like poisoned, right? I felt like I should have been like, oh my god, I have to get out of here. But I was so shocked to see that it did nothing to me. But yeah.
I feel like for him, and I mean almost like for Legends going forward, it'll be interesting to see almost like what play styles they come up with, right? Because if you're to play Caustic as this like defensive legend where he sets up his traps and then kind of has this area where enemies won't go through, how is that kind of concept going to be extended into these new legends that they come up with? And
On
are
that
they?
note, I'm just like super excited for like a recon hero, right? I
Yeah,
want to see what they're gonna do.
Bloodhound's really the only recon here right now, so it'll be interesting to see
Mhm.
how they do recon differently, right? Because I mean, Bloodhound's pretty standard. Like they have a radar,
Yeah.
they can track you because they're a hunter, and
Crows and footsteps.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll see if they can keep at the top.
yeah, seeing how it evolves, I think, will be very interesting. So we'll have to keep our eye on it for the near future. See if it becomes that Fortnite killer that everybody kind of labels it to be. In any case, though, I wanted to talk a little bit as well. So earlier this week we had the Nintendo Direct.
That's correct.
So lots and lots and lots of stuff that they mentioned there. We've narrowed it down to a few things that we wanted to speak about. You and I were very interested in Platinum's new title there, Astral Chain, I believe it was called.
Astral Chain. The art direction seems pretty crazy.
Yeah, so I've always been a big fan of Platinum. I mean, they do good work. That's kind of just a fact of video games at this point, right?
Mhm.
Bayonetta 2. We have, I believe it's Hideaki Kamiya who's working on Astral Chain, and he did his last Nintendo title, I believe, was The Wonderful 101.
Okay.
It's either Wonderful 101 or Bayonetta 2. I can't quite remember, but Platinum's always been known for their really, really good fighting games. Almost like kind of action RPG-esque, although, focusing more on action, of course. So I'm really interested in this game because here we have a game, fighting game by Platinum.
It seemed even like open world-esque, right?
Yeah.
It seemed crazy.
Almost like more similar to Nier Automata.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like it has that kind of open world aspect, but then that kind of really fast-paced and kind of moment-to-moment combat that
I remember when I
Platinum's
brought
really
it
good
up to you, I was like trying to remember the name. I couldn't. I was like, it's like some kind of like crackdown Japan.
Yeah, well, because your police officers are some type of law enforcement officers in this game. So yeah, the comparison isn't too far out of pocket.
In the gameplay, it seemed like you kind of use like a beast or a certain avatar along with when you're
Yeah,
fighting.
so I don't want to kind of make too many JoJo references here, but it's
You got your stand.
It's similar to a stand functionality in a sense where you have the two characters there, the male and the female protagonists or protagonists. I can't quite remember if both of them exist or not, but anyway, in any case, they summon these like robot beast things. I don't really know the name for them,
I
but
don't know what they are.
I've always been huge.
Maybe they're astral links.
Yeah, maybe something like that, and they're attached to you by chains, right? And I've always been really into robots and mech stuff, right? You know me. So that that immediately caught my eye when I saw it. I said, well, here's a game that is probably going to be on a lot of people's lists for the near future because, like I said, it's Platinum, which is they're very well known for kind of the quality of their games, which is almost a rare thing nowadays. And then it's they're just doing what they do best, right? It's a totally new IP, totally new universe. So it'll be great to see kind of what they do with it. So
no, I'm excited. I didn't think I was going to be excited. I always go into Nintendo Directs, I don't know, having no expectations, and I'm always pleasantly surprised.
I get that as well. I know the Directs up to and leading towards Smash Ultimate were a bit more exciting because it's like, what are they going to reveal for Smash Ultimate now? But now that Smash is out, now we have...
We're still getting Smash, though. We're still getting Smash.
Yeah, they did mention, of course, for Joker and the 3.0 update, which I believe will be in April.
Yeah,
I think it was.
that's it.
But now there's really more of a focus on like new products and like stuff upcoming. So one other one that I just wanted to talk about kind of briefly, it's coming out, but for this Direct, the demo was announced. Daemon Ex Machina.
Okay, so what did they release for the Nintendo Switch version, right? Is this a new game?
For Daemon Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not out yet. I believe it comes out in June 2019. Summer 2019 for sure. I just can't remember what month it is, but... so it's a mech game. It's closer to kind of Armored Core rather than any sort of Gundam or any kind of super robot video game. And so they came out with a demo. That's all that's kind of been out since then.
Okay. I've seen this. Okay, no, this game looks insane.
Yeah, they did the trailer. I believe it was a couple months ago. And then, so they just came out with the demo. It's 4 missions. Closer to 3, the first one's...
So what's the gameplay like? Is it more just range? Is it more of that glide?
So
I saw that a lot
it's
in the trailer.
very floaty.
Okay.
Very, very floaty at this
good,
point.
bad
So
thing?
I'll give you just overall impressions, right? So like I said, I'm a huge mech fan. So for me, playing the game, one of the most important things is movement and how it feels being in the mech. And yeah, it's kind of floaty at this point.
Does it feel smooth though?
So you have 2 movement kind of stances, if you will. Obviously, you can fly in air, and then you can be on the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not you're in the air or on the ground, as you move the stick, your mech, they're called arsenals. Your arsenal will kind of get into a motion and go with that. So if you're on the ground, instead of walking or running, it'll kind of start like rolling along the along the ground, or like skidding, if you will. And then,
Okay. I see what you're
yeah,
saying.
so then
Kinda like a
it
skate, kind of
yeah,
like a.
skating, yeah, that's a better way to describe it. And then the air, it's kind of the same thing. You get more into like a more fluid movement.
So you're always constantly moving.
Yeah. Also, you have a dedicated boost button, which is Y. So it's the same thing. Like whether or not you're in the air or on the ground, as soon as you hit Y, you just start motoring. You only have a limited amount of boost before it has to recharge. But yeah, that's kind of your main movement options. The thing is, I almost feel like being in the air is like very strange and almost like not kind of ideal, because so the way to get up in the air is you just press B, you kind of just jump, and then you press it again, you start flying upwards, or you hold down a really long jump and just soar into the air and then go from there. The way to descend is you have to push the left stick, and it feels very awkward because you're already moving with the left stick, so just pushing it in. I mean, if you fat finger it, I did that once or twice, but it feels very unintuitive. So yeah, the movement's a bit weird. I feel like they're going to try and do their best to tune it up. Combat is better, not amazing. I don't know if it's just because it's the demo, but a lot of the feedback and almost like game feel aspects of being in the mech and shooting and fighting, they don't register that well.
Okay.
I had Rumble turned up to the highest you could in the game settings, and still it didn't really do too much for me.
Okay.
So I don't know. I feel like, again, that's something they're going to tune up. I will say melee combat is awful.
It's what? What is it? It's like
Yeah,
rock, paper,
so
scissors or something?
no,
Or-
so they start you off with range weapons.
Okay.
And then basically the way it works is you can kill enemy arsenals and take gear from them. So I found a sword off my first arsenal. I was like, great, I'm taking a sword. They start you with a shield as well. I'm like, I'm going sword and shield. Sword and shield with missile launcher on my back. That's a great loadout. I'm doing it. I don't know if it's because I haven't figured it out or if I'm missing something, but really, so the way it works is that you have your left trigger and your right trigger. Your left trigger fires your left weapon. Your right trigger fires your right hand weapon.
Okay.
And so with my sword in my right hand, I hit the right trigger, and it's just the same move over and over again.
Oh, there's not even
That's
like
it. It's
a
just
combo.
the
not
one.
even-
It's just the one kind of slash over and over again, and it's really weird to use when you're in midair too, because you have to account for like the enemy arsenal. If you're fighting an arsenal, like moving backwards from you, so you might like dash towards it to go hit it, but then it kind of just moves out of the way.
So I have a question. Sorry, when it comes to the movement, are you just constantly encircling your opponent, or are you going forward, back, right? Can you choose where?
Yeah,
how
you can
you're
choose.
moving?
So it's so I'm gonna disregard melee combat because, like I said, it's awful. They have
It's
lots to do
awful.
for that. But using your weapons, right? So like I said, you have your left hand weapon, your right hand weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you have your little reticule in the middle of the screen, and you just aim that. You point that in the direction of an enemy, and it'll lock on for you, right? As soon as you're locked on, you can start shooting them, and that's it. So then you just kind of like you said, you just move wherever you want to dodge their
Okay.
fire. So that feels good enough, right?
Did they what's the main plan for this game? Did they release anything to do with? Is it story based? Is it going to be multiplayer?
I
Can you
believe there's
play against your friends?
Yeah, I think there's 4-player cooperative multiplayer. I don't think there's any competitive
There's no
multiplayer.
like against anyone.
No, I don't think so. At least not to my
Ah.
knowledge at this point. It is more story based. The way it works is that so the context behind you in the mech is that you are part of a mercenary organization that gets contracted out, and there's a bunch of different mercenary organizations. I'm not sure if they're gonna let you choose to join one or not. I think
Okay.
that'll be really interesting. But you end up, you're in a mercenary organization and you get contracted out to go and fight these runaway AI kind of platforms, if you will. They're called Immortals, I believe. They've just taken over like a bunch of different things like tanks and drones and everything and arsenals. So you get contracted out to go, deal with them. So, you enter the game and there's a hangar. You go into your kind of mission database and they're called orders. You accept an order and then you do whatever the objective is listed, and that's kind of it. So I believe the cooperative aspect of that will just be you'll be able to do orders together.
with your friends,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they'll have different arsenals and see,
Yeah,
what your friend
might be a
has
bit
now.
easier. Maybe they'll kind of adjust the difficulty based on how many people you're playing
Different
with.
drops, right?
So yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in to see what they do with it because, like I said, I'm a huge mech fan. So anytime there's mech related stuff, I'm into it.
No, they definitely look really cool, but yeah.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to mention before we go on to some of the other titles. So I started the game in Japanese audio.
Okay.
And I'm really glad I did that. So there's a scene, I believe it's in Mission 2, where you're fighting these immortals, and then everything stops, and these two gigantic, gigant type immortals pop up. They're like huge, right? They're
Okay.
and like you can barely do any damage to them.
Kaiju.
Yeah, like you can barely do any damage to them, and you're like, I mean, it's not like it's a hard fight or anything, but then basically what ends up happening is you're supposed to wait for these two other characters to show up.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm so glad I did it in Japanese because so the two characters that show up are voiced by it's the same voices that do Char and Amuro from Mobile Suit Gundam.
Okay.
The original, right? So and it's really funny too because Char in Gundam, his nickname is the Red Comet, and his character in Daemon Ex Machina, the call sign is Crimson Lord. So he comes in, he has a red arsenal, not mobile suit. And then, Amuro's character is nicknamed Diablo. And the Gundam from Mobile Suit Gundam is nicknamed the White Devil.
Okay.
So I was so happy when that, like, it was hilarious because they come on and, like, I'm listening. I'm like, wait, I know these voices. Like,
I know you.
yeah, I'm like, it has to be them. And, like, as soon as I finished the mission, I put down my Switch and I went and tried to look it up. I couldn't find any, like, confirmation that it's them.
Okay.
But it has to be them.
It has to be?
It has to be them. Because it's a
Okay.
mech game and it fits so perfectly. So I was so glad that I did in Japanese as opposed to English. So I just thought I'd mention that. It was pretty great.
No, I'll definitely keep you on that. We'll see if you were right about it. Your ears, if they're lying or not.
I know they're accepting a lot of feedback. I don't know if you remember from the direct, but they said like we're going to be emailing some players who partake in the demo for their more kind of intensive feedback, and then also if you have any kind of suggestions whatsoever, just get us.
Are you gonna
social
be
media.
Are you gonna be helping them out with that? Or
I might do some social media stuff towards them. I'm not sure. I really do hope they contact me though, because that'd be really nice.
that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think it'd be really good.
But yeah, I know we just left Battle Royales, but we're jumping right back.
Jumping
in with the
sort of back in.
hottest new Battle Royale, Tetris 99. Is that it?
Yes, Tetris 99. It's a bit strange, right?
I think it's just a great idea.
Oh, it's a fantastic idea. It's not actually a battle royale, of course. There's no dropping and finding weapons or anything. It's
I don't know what you mean, Corey. You
it's
could attack and
basically-
defend.
you remember Tetris Friends, right? You
Yes,
go on
yes,
Tetris Friends and you
yes.
fight against like 10 other people, and you end up two of you kind of going at it. It's the same thing, just with 99 people or 98 other people rather. I agree. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, maybe they'll add skins, for your blocks coming down.
Yeah.
That'll be nice.
That would.
you know
Hey,
what
I mean, it's almost like I think it's funny. Tetris is a classic, no matter what. I mean, I can't. I can't confess.
We can't knock. We can't.
I
knock
can't
Tetris.
confess to being absolutely in love with Tetris, but it's a classic, right? So if they can do new things with it, I'm all for it.
No,
right?
I
They can just
agree.
mess around with it. I think it's fantastic. Any other thoughts on Tetris there?
I don't think Tetris is self-explanatory, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't heard of Tetris today, at least go boot up a game and see if it's your cup of tea.
Yeah.
If it's not the first game, give it a couple more times. We've all had that phase, right? But other than
It's a
that,
good time waster,
Tetris 99, I'm looking forward to playing it.
You're looking forward to Tetris. I'm actually really looking forward to Rune Factory 5.
Rune Factory.
Yeah, so
5.
they announced this on this direct. Rune Factory 4 is being ported to the Switch. I might get it. I'm not entirely sure yet. I wasn't a huge fan of Rune Factory 4 compared to some of the others, but they also announced that Rune Factory 5 is in development for the Nintendo Switch. So I'm pretty excited about that. I always have been a pretty big fan of the series. I had the choice between Harvest Moon and Rune Factory, and I went with Rune Factory, and I was really glad I did because it's very similar.
So what are you hoping for in Rune Factory 5 that's dropping? Were you happy with the trailer or no?
Oh, they didn't really do a trailer or
They didn't?
anything. It was just like the
was
title
like,
card.
well-
They just announced that it's in development.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all they did. For me, what I'm looking forward to is, just having a new version of the game, right? Rune Factory as it exists is a pretty solid game just in of itself in terms of how it plays.
It's unique.
Yeah, I think if they kind of make sure they do keep doing what they have done, it'll be okay. But then I'm sure they'll try and innovate as much as possible, right? And it'll be nice to have it on those nice Switch graphics as opposed to a handheld.
Yeah, with the power of the Switch, we'll see what they can do.
It's on consoles, right, as opposed to a handheld, DS, 3DS, whatever have you. So I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna definitely be keeping my eye on that because, I can't even remember when Rune Factory 4 came out, but it's been so long. So having it.
Speaking actually of, sorry, what did you want to say? Do you have any final thoughts on Rune Factory?
Well, no, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm gonna be keeping my eye on it. You might hear me talk about it again in the future.
That reminds me of handheld games that transferring over to actual consoles now, right? Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem, yes. Fire Emblem Three
Three
Houses.
Houses.
Fire Emblem Hogwarts Edition.
That's so weird to me. We're
Yeah,
now moving away
so-
from lords, and kings and strategists.
And the general Fire Emblem kind of storyline, even.
Now we will have more than just swordsmen in Smash from now on.
Well, we'll see, right? Jeez, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, we have Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem, the
Fire Emblem Harry
Three
Potter.
Houses, I think it was. That's the official title, Three Houses.
Fire Emblem 9 and 3/4.
Yeah, Fire Emblem and the Goblet of Fire. So, just assuming that you're not aware, so Fire Emblem now, as it exists, or will exist once this game's out in July, got delayed to July, you don't actually take control of a prince or a lord or anything. You
or
are
strategist anymore.
Yeah, nothing like that. You're a professor at the Officers' College in this universe, right? Which is surrounded by the three ruling kingdoms of the universe, right? And so each kingdom has its own kind of officers' school
Houses.
representative. Yes, they're houses. Yes. So you're the professor of these students as opposed to being a student or being kind of directly in relation to. You almost exist above them in this case, right? Because, you think about Fire Emblem Awakening, you're pretty equal to Chrom and his merry band of men, right? You are
Exactly.
brought on as the strategist, so you direct what they do. Hoshino?
Yes.
Yeah. In those two games, Conquest, I believe, and what was it?
Oh yeah.
Bloodlines and
Bloodlines?
Conquest. I didn't play
Was it
that one. I
Bloodlines?
wasn't into it at all.
Oh, yeah,
but
Fire Emblem Fates. Fire Emblem Fates.
yeah, that one you're the prince with
Exactly.
one of your two families, right?
yes.
So same thing. You're kind of directly in relation to the main cast of characters, at least.
Awakening V2.
And yeah, Awakening V2. And in this one, yeah, you're the professor. So it'll be really interesting to see how it goes forward because I hate to say it, but the main thing that a lot of people center on is the romance aspect in Fire Emblem, because in the last two games there's a big emphasis on getting married and child characters and everything, and so this one the question is like,
What are they gonna do?
What are they gonna do? Because being in a relationship with your student might not really translate well.
I don't know. I feel like that's a great demographic you're trying to. Nah, I'm just being sarcastic.
So, well, I mean, I don't want to get too kind of culturally specific, but like the sort of teacher-student relationship, at least in media, is definitely more not consistent.
Okay, well, I mean, if we're gonna go down that route, let's go back to Fates when you're marrying like your sisters and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be
your sister and your brother. Or
I almost
whatever.
don't even want to talk about it just because I want to wait and see what they do.
So, but I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But how do you feel about the new direction of Hogwarts?
Hogwarts Fire Emblem.
Do you like it or no?
I think it's strange. I think
Is it a good strange, bad strange, or just strange?
just strange, man. Like it's hard to say. I mean, even in the kind of combat, thinking about the combat that you kind of partake in, you're a professor taking your students out on these excursions that are life or death. Like they say that in the trailer, right? Like you're taking them out to train, sure, but it's you're responsible for making sure the students don't die.
I think it's
So it's a really strange way to kind of establish the relationship between the player character and the NPCs, because, like I said before, you're always kind of equal to these other characters. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know.
I feel it's gonna be refreshing because
You think so?
I think after Awakening, they're like, wow, because it was supposed to be the last Fire Emblem, right? Awakening, I think.
Well, Awakening definitely was like a resurgence for the
And
series.
it was a resurgence for the series, right?
Yeah.
And so then they made Fates, which was just Awakening version 2. I
wasn't into Fates at all.
I
yeah.
didn't like Fates at all because I just felt it was a cheap copy of
Very much so. Yeah.
Awakening,
Mhm.
and everything is kind of feel played out. The characters, I'm sure, are fine, right? I tried very hard with Fates. I wanted to like it so much.
Just didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
So
I'm
you're
excited
saying with this new shift, it'll be nice to kind of get away from all
to
that.
get away
then?
from the lords, to get
Yeah.
away from your children. You know what I mean? Just popping
well, I
out of
mean-
dimension rifts. Not to say I don't like that. I love that. I love like min maxing who you're going to be pairing with. That is the essence
That
of
is
the game.
Pretty funny, yeah. Well, you know what? It's funny, right? Because like I'm saying, a lot of people are concerned about this romance aspect, but they might not even go for it. They might say, "We're done with that. We're not doing romance in this
You
game."
think so? I feel like that's a part, an essence.
Well, I know
the
it's
relationships.
I know it's very prevalent, and like they do mention that like the students can grow the relationship, right? So, I almost feel like you as the professor, like
You could hook up with other teachers, man. I'm sure that's an option.
I guess the main thing to keep in mind is we'll have to see, right? We'll have to see what they do. At the very least, it'll be interesting to see if it turns out well or poorly because, yeah, like you said, while it does seem a bit refreshing, it's also extremely different from what the mainstream audiences would be used to. So we'll have to see. Now, just before we wrap up, though, just one thing that I wanted us to talk about real quick. So, Link's Awakening.
True.
Link's Awakening is now coming to Switch. It's been a long time in terms of kind of porting Zelda games. So now we have Link's Awakening. Now I know
Is this the first port on the Switch?
I believe so.
For
the
Zelda
first
games.
port. I know there's a whole. I believe they have a whole retro type thing on the Switch, or at least they're planning on doing a whole retro type thing. This is the first kind of Zelda game that they're kind of redoing for the Switch.
Not counting Breath of the Wild, by the way.
As far as I can remember. So I don't think you haven't played Link's Awakening, right?
I have not played any other Link game besides
any
Breath
other
of
Zelda
the
game
Wild.
except Breath of the Wild.
Fight
Really,
me, everybody.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting actually, because like for me, I was one of those kids who had a GameCube and was grown up on GameCube and primarily Nintendo, as opposed to Xbox or PlayStation. So I played quite a few Zelda games over the years, right? The oldest one I played is Link to the Past.
Okay.
Which I thought was really good. Even as a kid, I enjoyed it a lot.
So I have a question actually.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's a remake, this game, do you think it holds up to the younger generation, or is it just for the old heads like you and I, or even older generation? Is that the demographic that they're aiming for? Is that enough?
I would say that they're definitely aiming more for the older audiences. Not to say that they're also trying for younger audiences.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing I was going to talk about is that kind of weird art style
Yeah.
that they went with, right? So it's very chibi-esque, but also kind of weird. Like,
do you think it's a good art style?
I'm not personally a fan of it. I think it looks a bit
just
strange. But here we have the Nintendo Switch, and a lot of people always associate Nintendo with young children and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense for them to kind of go this route, because they don't want to just have people being like, oh, I remember Link's Awakening, I'm going to get the remastered version to see if it holds up. They also want...
But that's the whole point of a remaster.
Well, that's the thing. That's part of their audience. But I also feel like they're going to try and have kids who are like, yeah, I got this Switch and I played Breath of the Wild. It was my first Zelda game, right? I don't have a game... these young kids, like, I don't have a GameCube, I don't have a Wii, I can't play in these older ones. But here's Link's Awakening, which is an older game now being on the Switch.
But I feel like those are like two separate genres. Okay, it's just like the same genre, but you know what I mean? Like
for Breath of the Wild and Link's Awakening.
Yes. They
oh
play
yeah, no,
completely
they play so differently, but it's just the association with the franchise, right?
I guess so.
Because you play The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and then you see The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening.
That's why I kind of feel off put by it, right? Because the demographic that they're trying to hit is the older generation. Like mostly,
yeah,
right?
I do think
that's who they're trying to hit.
I agree that it's mostly with the older generation.
But the new art style, I don't think it's gonna hurt it, right? I just don't know if it's gonna help it. So I guess what's the point of this conversation if it's not gonna do anything?
Yeah,
to it, right?
I mean personally, I think it's a bit strange looking. I mean, I don't really have.
It just looks weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like something that they could have done, but I mean the whole Toon art style that they have, for Wind Waker, Minish Cap, Spirit Tracks, and everything. If it were to be possible to do that onto the Switch, I almost feel
would be great.
Yeah, like why wouldn't they do that?
That's I think that's the avenue they I don't know, I don't want to say should have as someone who's only played Breath of the Wild, but I think that was an avenue that definitely was explorable, right? Something that they should have looked at.
Yeah, I mean
I'm
at the
sure
very
they have, though.
Yeah, I have to assume that as well. Like they made this decision in I want to hope
in good
it was
faith.
Good faith, yeah. So I mean we'll see. I don't have much interest in Link's Awakening myself, but it's always very interesting to me, at least, to see these companies kind of bringing back their old games, because we just had Resident Evil 2, the remaster, remake, whatever you want to call
Fantastic.
it, come out on I believe it was a few weeks ago now, and it's doing really well, right? So, I have to wonder if this will continue to be a trend for video games. Obviously, it's a huge trend in movies, which is something that we could definitely talk about at another date. But I have to wonder if video games will kind of take that same sort of route in what they kind of come out with, because
Well, I feel like the art style. I don't know. Just one last thing. I feel like the art style for Resident Evil 2 is beautiful. Looks amazing.
Well,
The,
yeah,
the
but that's
remaster that they did.
I believe it was kind of like a whole redoing
Yeah,
of it.
from
Yeah,
ground up.
From ground up. Yeah, that,
But same story. Like,
yeah, it's a bit
they should do
difficult
that
to
more
compare the two, just because like Link's Awakening was like a handheld game and was like top, you know,
True.
more cartoonish, whereas like Resident Evil is more based kind of
I mean,
in
I don't know.
reality.
I feel like you could add like some. I'm sure there's like different physics now in the game. I don't know.
We'll have to see. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. Whenever the next direct is, maybe if they kind of go back to it, we can revisit it and see sort of what the case is for Link's, not just for Link's Awakening, but for everything we mentioned here, right?
True.
There was a whole bunch of things that they mentioned for this direct that we didn't even end up getting to.
Yeah. I
that
wanted
we
to
don't
talk a
wanna
little bit
mention.
about Joker, but
Joker for Smash. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
they showed off his his model from the back there.
yeah, but I want to see his moveset. I want to see how he
Yeah.
plays, how he runs.
I mean, maybe that'll be in the next direct.
that's
Who
my
knows?
future main in the making right there.
The 3.0 comes out in April, so we have to wait a couple months until he's out. So maybe they'll have like a quick direct in between then. Who's to say? I don't really keep track on like when directs will come out, but in any case, yeah, I mean, we'll definitely keep our eye on, you know, not just like I mentioned, not just the stuff that we've spoken about here for direct, but all the other things that they kind of come out with. You know, always very interesting to see new IPs for the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, and on that note, you have anything else to say, right? At the end.
No, I'm good here.
Well, I
for
guess-
the direct, pretty good, yeah.
On that note, then please follow us on Twitter, at our SoundCloud, right? You could go watch us on YouTube, but if you're not already on YouTube. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to listen to Weekend Sauce episode 2.
Yeah, thank you so much. Goodbye.